Hi, I'm Ron Bateman, the Sheriff of Anne Arundel County. Welcome to your Anne Arundel's Most Wanted program, a program where we showcase wanted criminals, highlight open cases, and look to you for tips. You, concerned citizens, that share my same goal, and that's keeping our community safe. You'd be proud to know that your calls have allowed us to put handcuffs on thousands of criminals. So sit back, set your DVR, or grab a pen and paper, and help do your part in catching criminals. You're watching Anne Arundel's Most Wanted. So I want to tell our viewers that Detective Sergeant Jimmy DeLay from the Maryland State Police Glen Burnie Barrack was unable to make the taping today, so I'm going to do those wanted by the Maryland State Police. So we first have Lewis William Sisselberger. He's a white male. His date of birth is December the 8th, 1981. He's 5'11" tall, weighs 200 pounds, and his last known address was 802 Unetta Avenue in Baltimore. He's known to frequent the Brooklyn Park area of Anne Arundel County, so that's why we're going to talk about him on our show. On July the 21st, 2013, at 2:27 a.m., a trooper was on routine patrol in the area of Mountain Road prior to Magothy Bridge Road. At that time, the trooper observed a vehicle swerve over the double yellow line on 3 occasions and subsequently initiated a traffic stop. Upon contact with the driver, the trooper immediately detected a strong odor of alcoholic beverage coming from his breath and person. The driver was identified by his Maryland license as Lewis William Sisselberger. He had red, glassy eyes and slurred speech. Sisselberger stated he was coming from a friend's birthday party where he had consumed 1 alcoholic beverage prior to driving his vehicle back to his residence. Sisselberger agreed to perform field sobriety test. During the walk and turn test, he was unable to walk heel to toe and had poor balance throughout. During the one-leg stand test, he swayed, used his arms for balance, and put his foot down on 8 occasions. Sisselberger was then transported to the Maryland State Police Glen Burnie Barrack for processing. He agreed to take a breath test, which resulted in a .17 blood alcohol content. Sisselberger violated conditions of probation by failing to appear in court, failing to pay fines, and failing to submit to evaluation, testing, and treatment, and currently has an active bench warrant. The second subject wanted by the Maryland State Police, Glen Burnie Barrack, is going to be Alice Miriam Hart. She's a white female, date of birth of July the 30th, 1991. She's 23 years old. She's 5'7" tall, weighs 130 pounds, and has brown hair and brown eyes. Her last known address is 802 Unetta Avenue in Baltimore, the same address as our previously wanted person. So, she's also known to frequent the Brooklyn Park area of Anne Arundel County. And what happened was on April the 2nd, 2015, troopers from the Maryland State Police Criminal Enforcement Division responded to 802 Unetta Avenue in Baltimore for the purpose of serving a criminal summons for prostitution. Alice Hart is a known resident of the location and has had prior contact with the troopers. While at the residence, troopers observed in plain view 7 hypodermic syringes as well as 25 gel cap style pills of heroin. The evidence was seized and processed at the Maryland State Police Glen Burnie Barrack. An application was completed and Alice Hart has an active arrest warrant for possession of heroin and CDS paraphernalia. And the last subject wanted by the Maryland State Police is going to be Gregory Lamont Brooks. He's 6'2" tall, weighs 160 pounds, has black hair and brown eyes. His last known address is 2568 Shorter Road in Gambrels. On May the 28th, 2013, at approximately 3:26 a.m., a trooper responded to a motor vehicle collision located on the ramp from westbound Route 50 to Jennifer Road in Annapolis. The trooper observed a vehicle off the roadway and into the wooded area. The driver was identified by his Maryland license as Gregory Lamont Brooks. The trooper smelled a strong odor of alcoholic beverage coming from his person and observed his eyes were bloodshot and his speech slurred. Brooks admitted to consuming alcoholic beverages earlier. Brooks agreed to perform a series of field sobriety tests. Brooks had poor balance, performed poorly on the walk and turn test, and the one-leg stand. Brooks was arrested for DUI and taken to the Glen Burnie Barrack for processing. Brooks voluntarily submitted to a breath test, which resulted in a .12 blood alcohol content. He failed to appear for a violation of a probation hearing on 3/25/15 and has an active bench warrant. Brooks also failed to appear for a driving on a suspended license on January 21st, 2015, and has an active bench warrant for that case as well. So, folks, if you know the whereabouts of any of those individuals, you know the drill. Call that number on the screen, 410-222-1490 or 911 24 hours a day. And of course, everyone recognizes our next guest, Justin Mulcahy from the Anne Arundel County Police Department. Welcome back to the show, my brother.
Sheriff, my pleasure.
Who'd you bring for us?
3 people we're going to talk about today.
Outstanding.
The first one is Mr. Brian David Shea. He's a 29-year-old white male, 5'11", 210 pounds. Shea has a last known address of 2624 Salford Drive in Crofton. His warrant right now is for violation of probation, original charge being a theft. That incident happened several years ago at Target in 2012, shoplifting incident. He was cutting merchandise from packages and concealing them when he took out a folding knife from his back pocket, held it to an employee before fleeing the business. Again, that was his original charge. The warrant is for violation of probation in circuit court for Shea. Second person we're going to talk about on the show is Walter Lee Rogers. Rogers is a 23-year-old black male, 5'11", 150 pounds. He's got a last known address of 3702 4th Street in Brooklyn Park. A warrant on file for Rogers for first-degree burglary. We had an incident on September 30th of 2014. Officers responded to the 4000 block of Belgrove Road in Brooklyn Park for a burglary of a residence. Homeowner returned, discovered that residence was ransacked with multiple items to include electronics missing from the home. Evidence technicians responded, processed it for any forensic evidence. In early January of this year, evidence recovered from the scene ultimately linked the crime to Walter Lee Rogers, and it was determined he did not have permission to be in the residence or take any property. An application for charges was submitted for Rogers for burglary and theft. And we're going to conclude with our third suspect. That's Michael Wayne Patterson. Patterson's a 55-year-old white male, 5'10", 180 pounds. With no known address, but he does frequent the Millersville area. His warrant is sex offender registry, failure to register as required. He initially registered back on January 31st, 2011. He's required to register for a period of 15 years. That's as a Tier 1 offender on the Maryland Registry. On April 9th of this year, an application for statement of charges was completed on Patterson. He was charged with failing to register within 3 days of release from his period of imprisonment, and a warrant was issued for his arrest.
Great. Folks, you know the drill. If you know the whereabouts of any of those individuals, do not approach them. Instead, call that number on the screen, 410-222-1490 or 911 24 hours a day. Justin, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And now for another regular guest on our show, Corporal Amy Megath from the Annapolis Police Department. Welcome back to the show, Amy.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Who'd you bring for us?
I've got 4 today. The first one is Ryan Jerome Sims, Jr. His date of birth is 6/16 of 1983. He's a black male, 6 foot 1 inch tall, weighing 170 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. He has tattoos on his right and left arms, and his last known address is 411 Hilltop Lane in Annapolis. He has 2 open warrants. One is for first, third, and fourth degree burglary and theft less than $1,000. And the other warrant is for armed robbery, home invasion, first and second degree assault, third and fourth degree burglary, and theft less than $100. The first warrant stems from a burglary that occurred on May 9th, 2014 in the 1100 block of Madison Street. Sims broke into an apartment and stole numerous items, including a blank money order. Through investigation, our detectives were able to link Sims to the stolen money order. The second warrant stems from a home invasion robbery that occurred on November 12, 2014 in the 900 block of Central Street. Sims and an accomplice entered an unlocked home and confronted one of the male residents. Sims demanded property from the victim, and then the victim was stunned with a taser and knocked to the ground. The victim was then held at knife point while Sims searched the home. The victim's cell phone, a knife, and some money were stolen from the home. The second subject is Pedro Alfonso Oriana, also known as Michael Arneson or Angel Mendoza. His date of birth is 8/19/1970. He's a Hispanic male, 5 foot 4 inches tall, weighing 135 pounds. He has brown hair and brown eyes and a tattoo on his upper left arm. His last known address is 1219 Barbud Lane in Annapolis, and he has 2 open warrants. One is for first, second, third degree, and fourth degree sex offense and second degree assault. The second warrant is for failing to appear in court for a possession of marijuana charge. The first warrant stems from an incident in 2008 when a sexual offense with a child victim was reported to the police. The sex offense occurred at the child's home, and Pedro Orellana was identified as the suspect. Orellana rented a room from the victim's parents. The officer obtained a search warrant and an arrest warrant for Orellana on the sex offense. The second warrant was issued when Orellana failed to appear in court for a 2007 possession of marijuana charge. Third subject is Douglas Michael Johnson, date of birth 12/5 of 1953. He's a white male, 5 foot 10 inches tall, weighing 163 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. He has scars on his left and right legs and his chest, and a tattoo on his upper right arm of a peacock. His last known address is 169 Duke of Gloucester Street in Annapolis, and he has 7 open warrants for disorderly conduct and open container violations. One of these warrants stems from an incident on October 26, 2014. At 11 a.m., an Annapolis police officer responded to City Dog Coffee for a disorderly man sitting in a chair outside, yelling at people as they walked by. The officer saw the man, Douglas Johnson, sitting in a chair in front of the coffee house drinking a beer. As the officer approached Johnson, he could hear him yelling at people passing by. The officer asked Johnson to stop yelling, and he refused. An employee of the coffee house came out to speak with the officer, and Johnson started making racial comments towards the employee. The officer told Johnson to be quiet, and he refused. The officer arrested Johnson for disorderly conduct and having an open container of alcohol. Johnson failed to appear in court for these charges and has 6 other open warrants for open container and disorderly conduct violations. And the last subject we have is Charles Frank Rourke. Date of birth 11/12 of 1944. He's a white male, 5 foot 9 inches tall, weighing 190 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. His last known address is 1934 Lincoln Drive, Apartment J in Annapolis. He has 2 open warrants. The first warrant is for second degree assault. The second warrant is for malicious destruction of property. In April 2011, officers responded for a report of a domestic assault. The victim walked out of her apartment and saw her estranged husband, Charles Rourke, walking around her son's car. When the victim approached Rourke, he walked away from the car over a hill and got into his own vehicle. Rourke revved his vehicle's engine and drove towards the victim. The victim attempted to move out of the way, but before she was completely clear, the vehicle struck her right arm. The victim's son found deep scratches to his vehicle on the passenger side front quarter panel, as well as on the front and back door on the passenger side.
Outstanding. Folks, you know the whereabouts of any of those individuals. Remember, call that number on the screen. Do not approach them. 410-222-1490 or 911 24 hours a day. Keep those calls coming in, folks. Your tips are definitely paying off. Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Before I talk about those subjects wanted by the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office, I want to tell our viewers that as we are doing this taping right now, the riots in Baltimore City are happening either as we speak or definitely last night and the night before, and are expected to hopefully not continue as the week goes on, but we're preparing for the worst. So I can tell you that every member from every police agency represented during this show is in some way involved in keeping either Baltimore County safe or Baltimore City safe, and also Anne Arundel County. So I want you to know, the viewers to know, that the Maryland State Police, the Annapolis City Police Department, the Anne Arundel County Police, and my Sheriff's Office are involved in making this county and Baltimore City as safe as possible. So now, for those subjects wanted by the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office, our first subject, that is going to be Gary Scott Reynolds. Now, Reynolds is wanted on escape charges. He was previously convicted of theft, $1,000 to $10,000, and sentenced to 2 weekends of incarceration. Reynolds was scheduled to report for a weekend commitment on March 6, 2015 at 6 p.m. At 10:01 p.m., he had not notified or reported and therefore had exceeded the established 4-hour grace period. He is considered to have escaped from weekend commitment. So we are looking for Gary Scott Reynolds, who is a 42-year-old white male, date of birth of April 1st, 1973. He's 6 foot 1 inches tall, weighs 175 pounds, and has brown hair and blue eyes. and his last known address is 700 Appomattox Road West in Davidsonville. Our next subject, that's going to be Andy Jesus Aguilar. Aguilar is wanted on assault charges. On December the 14th of 2014, County Police responded to the 300 block of McIntosh Drive in Glen Burnie for the report of an assault. Officers spoke with the female victim, who advised that a friend and former co-worker named Andy Jesus Aguilar and 3 associates came to her home to discuss a problem. An argument started, and Aguilar and the 2 male associates wanted Aguilar's girlfriend to fight with the victim. However, the females would not engage in a fight. Aguilar was reportedly so enraged, he had to be held back from attacking the victim. When the victim turned away from Aguilar, he punched her in the back of the head, causing her to fall onto the side of a nearby vehicle. Aguilar continued throwing punches, striking the side of her head near her ear, and then landing an uppercut punch to the victim's chin. The latter resulted in the victim biting her lips, causing bleeding and swelling injuries. Aguilar and his group of friends then drove away in a yellowish-orange 2012 Zion TC bearing Maryland plates. I don't have anything nice to say about a man who brings his own audience and beats up on a woman in front of them. So let's move on. So today we're looking for Andy Jesus Aguilar, who's a 21-year-old Hispanic male with a date of birth of January the 11th, 1994. He's 5 foot 9 inches tall, weighs 200 pounds, and has brown hair and brown eyes. And his last known address is 481 Glenmar Circle, apartment C3 in Glen Burnie. Our next subject is Elazar Rashad Henson. Henson is wanted for failing to register as a sex offender. Now, on May the 22nd, 2008, Henson was convicted of sexual solicitation of a minor. He is classified as a Tier 2 offender on the Maryland Registry and is required to register for a period of 25 years. Henson's last registered on October 20th, 2014 at the Northern District Florida County Police and provided an address of 2406 Mountain Road in Pasadena. Now, while conducting a sex offender address verification, it was discovered the residence listed by Henson was completely fictitious, per the resident who had lived there for 2 years. It appears to be an ongoing issue because Henson had registry violation convictions from Anne Arundel County from October 15th, 2012, March 11th of 2013, and May the 12th of 2014. So we are looking for Elazar R. Henson, who's a 33-year-old black male with a date of birth of September 16th, 1981. He's 5 foot 9 inches tall, weighs 180 pounds, and has black hair and brown eyes. And his last known address is 530 Short Curve Drive in Glen Burnie. Now let's see, our next subject. It's going to be Jacob Michael Getman. On July the 2nd, 2014, Getman was previously convicted for handgun violations and placed on a 2-year probation with supervision sentence. On September the 12th of 2014, he was arrested and charged with motor vehicle / unlawful taking. This is a problem for Mr. Getman, of course, because one of the terms of his probation is to obey all laws. No kidding. On September 12th of 2014, Getman also picked up a boatload of traffic charges, which I just do not have the airtime to recount all of them. Suffice it to say that obeying all laws applies to the traffic realm as well. Getman also failed to report as directed, failed to work and or attend school regularly, failed to pay all fines, costs, restitution, and fees as ordered by the court, failed to submit to and pay for random urinalysis as directed, and he failed to submit to evaluation and attend and successfully complete mental health treatment as directed. P.S. He also has another VOP warrant out of Baltimore City. Shocking. So today we are looking for Jacob Michael Getman, who's a 20-year-old white male. The date of birth of August the 10th, 1994. He's 5 foot 10 inches tall, weighs 150 pounds, and has brown hair and brown eyes. And his last known address is 989 Sunny Court in Gambrels. Let's see who we have next. It's going to be Glenn Edward Meyer. Meyer was previously convicted of assault and placed on 5 years probation. He was found in violation of his probation on April 16th of 2012 and incarcerated on a companion case until December the 12th, 2012. Per the probation report, Myers' location is currently unknown. Since his release, Myers has failed to report as directed and follow his supervising agent's lawful instructions. Failed to work and or regularly attend school, failed to get permission from his supervising agent before changing his home address, changing his job, or leaving the state of Maryland. Failed to permit his agent to visit his home, and he failed to pay all fines, costs, restitution, and fees as ordered. He also failed to submit to and pay for random urinalysis as directed, failed to submit to, successfully complete, and pay for alcohol and drug evaluation, testing, treatment, education as directed, and he failed to submit to evaluation, attend, and successfully complete mental health treatment as directed. Yep, epic fail. Epic. So today, we are looking for Glenn Edward Meyer, who is a 51-year-old white male. The date of birth, September 17th, 1963. He's 5 foot 8 inches tall, weighs 210 pounds, and has brown hair and brown eyes. And his last known address is 514 North Crane Highway in Glen Burnie. And our last subject, that is going to be Tyler Carl Kress. Kress violated the terms of his probation for his prior failing to obey a lawful order conviction by failing to report as directed, failing to work and or attend school regularly as directed, failed to obey all laws, and failing to pay all fines, costs, restitution, and fees as ordered by the court. He's got a new bench warrant out for that. Kress violated the terms of his probation for his prior CDS, possession of paraphernalia, conviction for the same, failures to adhere to the terms of that probation agreement. Yep, another new bench warrant rolled out. Kress violated the terms of his probation for his prior assault, second-degree conviction. You know the what and why as well as the result. Bench warrant number 3. Exactly how many second chances do you need, Mr. Kress? Really? Today we are looking for Tyler Carl Kress, who's a 23-year-old white male with a date of birth of January the 7th, 1992. He's 6 foot 3 inches tall, weighs 210 pounds, has brown hair and brown eyes. And his last known address is 1041 Vena Lane in Pasadena. Now, folks, if you know the whereabouts of any of those individuals, do not approach them. You know the drill. Call that number on the screen, 410-222-1490, 911, 24 hours a day. Keep those calls coming in, folks. Your tips are definitely paying off. Now, we're going to take a quick break. We come back, we're going to talk to the superintendent of the Anne Arundel County Detention Center, Mr. Terry Coccolas. We're going to talk about his goals as a superintendent for the County Detention Center. So stay tuned.
Listen to me. I am captain of the track team. And if I'm late,
she doesn't really think she's going to get out of here, does she?
Be nice. She's new.
Hello, is anyone there? Ugh!
Wow. Even from our standards, you look awful.
Oh, sweetie, what happened?
Me? My friend Becky got to talk to this super cute boy, and I tried to act like I wasn't jealous, but I so totally was. And then out of nowhere, this concrete barrier just popped up. Maybe it was a semi.
You mean you were driving?
Yeah. I mean, I know the whole eyes on the road thing, but this was a super important text. Maybe you have to know, Becky.
Texting? Great.
But it was only like 5 seconds, and I'm a really, really fast texter, so it wasn't even a big deal. Actually, has she texted me back yet? Wow, I get like no bars in this place. I wonder if they have Wi-Fi here.
Welcome back from the break. Folks, as you know, I've been doing a series for the last 4 months now with members from our Public Safety Core Group, a core group that was formed by our county executive, Mr. Steve Shue, who was our first guest to kind of launch this, this campaign of talking about our Public Safety Core members to our viewing audience. So today I have with me a good friend, a guy that I've known for a long time, Terry Coccolas, who is the superintendent of the Anne Arundel County Detention Centers. And you're going to hear why I say centers. So, Terry, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sheriff.
So, we talked off camera. Let's talk a little bit about how long you've been doing this and in what role.
Well, I've been superintendent for the past 6 years with Anne Arundel County. Prior to that, I was the facility administrator, also known as a warden in Anne Arundel County. Prior to that, I retired from Montgomery County Department of Corrections, Maryland. And all in all, have close to 40 years experience in local corrections in the state of Maryland.
Good deal. Now, I said centers, detention centers, to our audience, and a lot of people don't know that we have two. So why don't you talk about that, each one of them, and what's the purpose of having two?
Well, thank you, Sheriff. A lot of people don't know the difference between jails and prisons. The Jennifer Road Detention Center is an intake facility in Annapolis, and it is predominantly for the purpose of being a central intake for anybody who is arrested and committed in Anne Arundel County. They will start in the Jennifer Road Detention Center, be processed, and it's an intake facility, which means that we really prepare people for pretrial arraignment, bail reviews, adjudication, trials, and sentencing eventually. The importance of that is that an individual can be sentenced to local corrections in the state of Maryland for up to a period of 18 months. Beyond 18 months, the option of a judge is to sentence somebody to the Division of Corrections. Between a year and 18 months, they have the option of either local or state corrections. But for those individuals that receive an 18-month sentence, they will return from court to the Anne Arundel County facility on Jennifer Road, and they'll be transferred to the Ordnance Road Correctional Center in Glen Burnie. The Ordnance Road Correctional Center is our sentence facility, and it is the primary facility that provides programming for all the inmates who are sentenced, keeping in mind that 68% of the inmates in the Anne Arundel County Department of Detention facilities are Anne Arundel County residents. That means 7 out of 10 are returning to our community in Anne Arundel County. And what we would like to do is prepare them to be successful and return in better condition than their arrival. The Ordnance Road facility has multiple different programs that all gear towards the funnel of what is called a re-entry program. Our re-entry program is for those inmates that are getting close to release, where we try to provide our greatest resources, skill, education, addiction services, and multiple other services prior to their release. Also, as a part of our re-entry program, we have a fair. Colleges have job fairs. Well, the Ordnance Road Correctional Center has a re-entry fair where we have different service providers from social services, health department, and a number of other local entities and partners that actually come to Ordnance Road and ensure that those residents, those sentenced inmates who are ready to return to the population of Anne Arundel County, are in better condition than when they arrived. Part of that is most individuals after a sentence are also have a period of probation. And what we do is we bring the actual probation officer to Ordnance Road so that the probation officer meets with the defendant prior to their release. That way there is a segue post-release that you know who your probation officer, and the individual reports to the probation officer. What that does is it decreases the number of violation of probation warrants that you have to serve, or to minimize it. So we're helping our law enforcement partners.
So you're breaking the ice with the probation officer before he or she even leaves incarceration.
Yes, and we have found it to be a very effective tool that has really decreased the number of failure to appears and violation of probation defendants that leave our department.
So the old notion of, you know, you've been sentenced for 18 months in the Anne Arundel County Detention Center, put in there, throw the key away, and 18 months later you get out, that way of thinking is gone, obviously.
No, actually what we do is if an individual is sentenced, what we do is we begin with the end in mind, and we provide a menu of opportunities so that an individual requiring a service, GED, we have well over 800 GED graduates that have come through our program. Even with the new GED program that became effective last year, which is a Pearson proprietary operated by the Department of Education in the state, we are even successful in graduating GED graduates through that program, which is a lot more difficult curriculum than the old GED system.
I was going to say, so the viewers don't realize, or don't misunderstand me, we're not coddling our criminals. We're trying to prepare them for release so they don't come back, so they don't recommit crimes. Is that pretty much it?
That is. I'd like to put local corrections out of business. I know it'll never happen. But as I indicated, 68% are Anne Arundel County residents. So it really is beneficial for us to be good stewards of not only our resource dollars, but also good stewards to the community, because the Anne Arundel County Department of Detention Facilities is Anne Arundel County's correctional system. And we try to return those citizens to the communities of Anne Arundel County in better condition, better prepared for employment, housing, and other things to benefit and lead for a more productive life.
Gotcha. Now, we're going to talk about challenges. The first challenge I got to get out is, I know it's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's personnel. So let's talk about that and talk to people how they can apply and what your problems are there.
Everybody listening to the show, we have jobs. We have them today. You go to the Anne Arundel County website, or you go to the Department of Detention Facility websites. It'll steer you right towards downloading an application for many positions. We have everything from detention officers to maintenance to correctional counselors to secretarial positions, support positions. We have all positions available, and we are recruiting right now. So we have positions available today.
Very good.
So encourage people to apply.
So what are your other challenges that you deal with every single day?
Well, as you know, as an intake, a police officer working in Anne Arundel County who arrests anybody, regardless of crime, they end up at the Jennifer Road Detention Center. And in the first 4 hours of their incarceration, we have to best determine what needs they have, what medical needs they have, what mental health needs they have, what addiction services they may require, because there is a very, very strong connection between the use of drugs and incarceration. And it all ends up at the Jennifer Road Detention Center. So our challenges are trying to determine the difference between those who might have a mental illness, those who might have mental health needs, those who are under a methadone program and they need their medication, those that have co-occurring disorders and are acting out in ways that we humanely have to resolve in a most proficient way. So it's not knowing an unknown population of individuals coming in the door. Jennifer Road is the first area where we have to provide a classification. It's pretty common: maximum security, minimum security. They're all classifications that have to be determined by case management staff at Jennifer Road. We have to do it quickly, and we have to determine best housing so that individuals are not victimized and are with like-kind charged individuals in the facility.
Majority of your population, interrupt you, medium, maximum, what's it make up?
We get them to medium, but when they're unknown, many of them are maximum depending on crime. But many of them, as you know, Ron, are recidivist. They've been in our system, so they'll come in, we'll pull up their prior 2, 3, 5, 10 incarcerations, and we'll be able to determine a rating, and we'll also be able to determine what needs they may have the most, which is most specific for the mental health population that is finding itself to local correctional facilities throughout Maryland. As the mental health system that was operated and managed by the state continues to decrease the number of beds in state hospitals, local law enforcement and families are ending up resolving those problems by incarcerating individuals through emergency petitions and by other local charges that end up in local facilities that now have to contend for 3-6 months until trial and adjudication is complete. It's a very challenging population.
So any other major goals that you have in mind?
We have a number of major goals in mind, and that is to always humanely maintain our corrections department. We are 100% in compliance with Maryland Correctional Standards requirements. We have most recently gone through an accreditation through the National Correctional Healthcare Coordinating Committee, and we're waiting for our results back to indemnify the county through healthcare. And those are the areas that we really tried to expand and try to point and always be in connection with our partners in public safety in the county.
And I got to say to our viewers that every time we do a sting or a sweep in Anne Arundel County, my sheriff's deputies, along with the county police in Maryland State and Annapolis City, I always call Terry first, and you get your facility ready for a massive intake of prisoners. So we really appreciate that. So as we close, let's talk about what special week this is.
Yes, in 1987, President Ronald Reagan proclaimed a Correctional Employees Week, which is the first full week in May. And his quote was, "No group of Americans is a more difficult or less publicly visible job than the brave men and women who work in our correctional facilities." So it's a very special week. We try to do something different for 7 days for our staff in both of our correctional facilities. Our Employees of the Year will throw out the first pitch at the Bowie Bay Sox game.
Cool.
And a number of other things. We have a very nice lunch. We have an ice cream social one day. But we try to do something for staff each and every day to ensure that they feel appreciated from National Correctional Employees Week.
Great, Terry. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Sheriff. Appreciate being here.
Folks, as I conclude this show, I want to thank a few people that allow this show to happen every single month. First, behind the camera, we have Mr. Dale Boyer. From my office, who produces the show, Lieutenant Jennifer Gilbert Duran. I also want to thank our County Executive Steve Shue, Chiefs of Police Tim Altamari and Mike Pristoop, and of course the Superintendent of the Maryland State Police, Mr. William M. Palazzi. Folks, remember, I'm Sheriff Ron Bateman. Let's keep Anne Arundel County safe. We'll see you next time on Anne Arundel's Most Wanted.